let's see, review minutes.
Do you know if there's been any interest in the posted position for recording secretary?
Alright. Have you?
I haven't. I was told
We
that
really haven't
until
had
the
since
time
October 20.
that position's filled,
Bad luck.
either the town administrator or Tony would have to turn scrap the minutes. So I don't think
And your point is what?
we're asking other people with duties they might not normally have to indulge in.
And,
I am thankful for their...
moving on to the minutes.
I will move that we accept the minutes of October 23rd, 2018.
I'll second.
Oh, go ahead, Tony.
I'll second that.
Motion and second to approve the minutes of October 23rd.
Any discussion?
Apparently
I
not.
see no problem with them. They look good to me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Gene. I think that's probably the last set of minutes should be doing, right?
Right. Did you take her off the email list, Dave? Did you see that?
Yes, I did.
She has to be removed.
It's done, at least on my end. So if I send out agendas, that she will not be copied anymore.
I'm gonna start passing some of this around.
Split that up.
Do we have any applications?
No. What did I see?
I did see a bunch of approvals.
Yeah, but no application.
Yep.
Go through this stack and give them that way.
Once
I'll
in
go
a
through that stack and give them this way. How's
while.
that?
Yeah. Carroll County.
This application, we reviewed, approved.
Yeah,
Steve signed it on the 23rd.
but I don't know why it landed back in the box, but it's already been approved.
Right.
Maybe it's our copy that goes into our files.
So did we have,
We silence that, Mr. Chair?
did we have one application that we received that only had one copy?
I seem to recall one, yeah.
There was at one time, yeah.
Yeah. So
You
I
think
don't
that's
know
a
if,
copy of it?
I don't know if this was in or not, it's been so long now.
I saw that. Let's see that, Chair had already signed it.
It's a.
I would say it just goes down on the file.
That diverts water.
I got a copy.
I know they have to put some in a playground to run down and over. Prevent erosion.
Do you think this accompanied any correspondence saying that the application was reviewed and the permit was issued?
What?
Do you think this is a copy of some more
I-
correspondence that says, you know, regarding this application, it's been reviewed and approved.
I haven't heard
These are
of it
letters.
or
Yes.
I would say it probably just goes downstairs in the file.
Okay.
New septic system.
Note of the map and whatnot. This is the part of the meeting where the public is generally sitting on the edge of its seat, waiting for the next.
Exciting thing to happen here. There's got to be some better way of doing this, but I don't know what it is. We don't get them in a timely fashion. Well, these are going your direction.
Okay.
And what's that, Dave?
Some of these. These are letters.
Whoa.
Donna, did you get the email I forwarded you from, Michelle? About that money you won, we're looking to get reimbursed for that, you went to the Conservation Commission?
Oh.
That was a while, it's been a
It was
while.
I can look at my,
But she emailed me and asked me if I had you, and I said no, so I just forwarded the email
I
to
so
you.
totally forgot about that.
I got canceled, didn't
I wasn't able to go. Yeah.
Those are yours. Nothing of any big interest in it.
This is
I? I
interesting.
guess I can look at this later.
I will look and see. I'm not seeing it right off the bat of my folder, but that's up to me to take care of anyway. But thank you. I mean, that's got like a deadline on it, and I don't know. Sent to Nate. And I guess that's, is that Tom Lavender?
Yeah, we did, Dave and I went out with them to do the review, but we weren't the ones responsible for turning in
So
the report.
these are the monitoring reports that they compile themselves and it just.
Let's get back to November 3rd. Not that, yeah.
You guys are done with looking at some of those, if you could pass them this way, if you would, please,
It's all done.
here's some more stuff you might be interested in.
We just noticed of approval or not approval. So I guess those could go down.
Thank you.
Yep.
This one you may want to look at. I don't know what it's trying to tell us.
Those two guys stay together.
Back off of these things. I think it says something.
So quite often when we talk about applicants that may be missing a few items, I don't know if you folks reviewed the one for 119 Chandler Lane, but it specifically talks about the things that were not included in the
Yeah.
application. So it is, you know, it's probably something that we should encourage the applicants to make sure are on their applications before we try to get them to the state.
This one's different
NHP.
for me. Oops, this goes with it. I think so.
Should always be.
Let's see.
And these have already been on that.
I haven't
so
seen the ones like the first ones, probably,
So like this one that's requesting additional information?
Yep.
Okay. Well, they got a lot to do.
Yeah, the tax in the town, every parcel has a map and lot number, and when those are not in there, or an NHB report is not in
There's
there.
no photos,
Photos are always good.
tax
Should be
office
at least
photo
6 of
included
them.
on the property.
That one's interesting.
That's part of, that's the back page of that one.
Okay.
those ones are, I think you already saw.
Yep. One, two.
I don't remember quite this number of applications coming through here with that much missing material.
That one has a
Oh,
lot.
It
yeah.
seems like there, well, I don't remember seeing ones with that much missing material. A few,
But-
but not very many.
But they don't have to, it doesn't have to come through,
It doesn't have to come.
it doesn't have to
Okay,
come through the
that makes sense.
Conservation Commission.
Yeah.
It's an expedited
They
process.
should be sending it through us so that they don't send in something that's incomplete.
Right, but basically, they don't, what they're getting is an expedited process.
Yeah.
If it comes through the Conservation Commission and the Conservation Commission approves to sign it.
Yeah,
Other than that, they don't necessarily have to. They can just send it in if they
yeah,
are not looking for an expedited process.
yeah.
So is it all right if I, when we, batch of information
Done.
That can go down with both.
Okay.
in one date?
Well, it's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's two Rock Havens, there, I think. Is it the
Okay,
Rock
so this
Haven?
was-
Well, that's, you know,
Can't keep
this,
them together, I guess is my question. Because here it was asking for information, here it was approved, and that was,
Okay, this is
26
the cover
days
page
later.
for all of these.
25 days.
a lot of new houses going up, huh?
Here's a couple.
Are we sure all of this is already done on that side of the table, right?
Yes.
Excellent.
Simple story. It continued
I'm not
northly
sure
through the
what
old
hap-
log
what-
landing.
You know, warm and sunny and dry.
The trail
It was-
petered out after a while, but I continued walking in a northeasterly and northerly direction.
This one's got a route that they walk, and look, they have a GPS unit in their pocket.
Yeah. Oh,
It's kind of interesting, yeah. I mean, I like that.
yeah.
I could have
fire
provided
pit.
one for one we walked, lavender property. I have one somewhere.
This is a lavender. almost sounded like my stomach. Have you looked at all of these?
It is being done, to the best of my knowledge.
Is that saying we're $333 in the red? No.
No, that's negative.
Carroll County Conservation has an opening. You guys are dying to jump on it. Are these things we need to look at?
If you want, I mean, it's just, you know, correspondence,
There's several
information.
walks on the property.
I think anything on the table you better look at, except for Steve. Don't go on the tables.
Oh, I looked at these already.
You wanna see the numbers for the budgeting process?
I think
I
they've
would
already been done.
assume
Well,
that.
sorry about
It was
that.
just an. So- Oh,
Down's not broke, it's just bent. See, so,
it's a serious water problem. It's just a newsletter.
well, we'll go to this one, isn't it?
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, December
When
4th.
when we walked there, I forget,
Yeah,
there was no discussion about
26.
motorized vehicles
Yeah, there was some.
and posting. I mean, posting.
They had some posting, I think, they said.
Well, my concern is that
But some
motorized
of-
vehicles on a snow machine's a motorized vehicle.
Yeah, they were, to the best of my knowledge, they were allowing limited
Yeah.
activity. They had in fact trails
Put them
posted,
together.
so I don't know.
Well, this is, uh, this report that Southeast Land Trust did, they're asking for our report, which we did.
Yeah,
I scanned and emailed it to them.
That's the same thing we reviewed.
Yeah, they're coming back and asking for it
That it
again.
did
That's
come in
weird.
the same time.
So I'll have to follow up.
yeah, okay.
The one
Yeah,
they
I thought we
approved.
had arranged for that.
Asking about?
I wasn't doing it, but I thought somebody was.
Yeah, well, I did it.
Yeah.
I can look that email up.
26,
I think.
27.
Seems to me I would have sent a copy to the conservation file.
Mhm. Okay, so, what do you want to see this messages? Okay, so this can all go back down. Why did you want to keep it running?
No, that's okay. These everybody can look at, but I'd like them back to the SALT reports to file in the conservation files downstairs, and the letter from SALT to follow up and find out why
I think
they're
I've already
asking.
seen those down there, so you could probably just keep them.
Yeah,
They came from that direction.
well,
They're in deep contemplation. I won't mess them up.
Ooh,
Yeah, he went
Yeah.
there, yeah.
Hmm.
What else is that? 1400 Falcons Way Road.
The less we see of these, the better off the town is, I think. Letter of deficiency. Just a little bit of information requested.
Smidgen.
What is that? What number is that? 530. Oh, this is the wrong, almost, kinda look like almost the same thing that they wanted.
Yeah, actually, I've seen both of those sites. That's good to see the permits were issued. So those two things on Level Lake Road are for razor docks, so they can go in and install the anchoring things for.
All right, new board business. Well, actually, under new, hopefully I'll remember under all of the communications from Barry Conservation Camp.
I have it. That's for one. One for June. One for each June. And I have one for July.
I've had it.
That's okay. And basically, it's just gives all the different events, sessions that are happening, and the deadlines, which is interesting. They have to get in touch with them by February 1st. I'm just, I remember last year when I tried to do this, I wasn't with the Berry Camp, it was the other one.
Yeah.
And we got all that information together, and we got them to the Paul School, and we got them out to, Deb.
Wilson, yeah.
yeah, but the kids didn't respond.
Mm.
Now, I don't know if that was a ball dropped maybe on my part, or the school office, you know. Sometimes there's so much stuff. I remember when I was teaching and in the school system, so much stuff comes over the loudspeaker, so much stuff comes in the office that
It seems
the
to go.
kids don't quite catch it, you know.
It seems to go in cycles.
Yeah.
Some years you get some years you don't.
Okay. So would I still just go ahead and I made these copies, but I would just present this to someone in Paul's school and also maybe get something from Deb?
If you bring it to the school board, you know, and ask to put it on their agenda for discussion,
Mm-hmm.
then the school board would probably instruct the administration at the school level to make sure that this is information shared with all the whole student body.
Okay.
Sometimes, if the administration's not told to do something by somebody with some authority,
Right,
it might not be emphasized.
right. Okay.
But if this doesn't go home as a handout with the kids,
Yeah, if the kids don't have it, then the parents never see it.
Right, right.
And
Yeah.
so, and then that's, I think, needs to be notified or get some information out to. And especially with knowing that there's the you know, possibility of the fee being covered. It's not like they're having to,
Right?
because we've got the funds and
Well,
at least
hopefully it's
send a
not an
couple of
issue.
kids.
Hopefully it's not an issue of, you know, they don't have the money budgeted for making copies, you know,
Right.
and handing out copies. Hopefully that's not the issue.
And I had just downloaded this from their site, so all I did
Well,
when they sent it to me.
like I started, I was gonna do under other, but it pertains to this. The selectmen, the budget committee cut out one camper out of our budget.
On camper?
Yes, so $500 instead of 5 campers, they reduced it down to 4 campers that we can fund.
Uh-huh. So the money we didn't use last year is gone?
It will be at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
What's
Yeah,
our budget line
and
for
it doesn't get
that?
rolled over, I don't
We
believe.
had, well, it was 2,500 for 5, it was 500 a kid for 5 kids, but they reduced it back to 4 kids.
Of course, this would be part of the
So now-
cycle where there's more kids interested.
It would
As
be,
long as
wouldn't
it's
it? Yeah.
Always the way it works.
So now we have 2,000?
Correct. For 4 we can fund 4 campers this coming year.
Right.
And what's happened in the past is, say there was only $2,000 budgeted, but there's 10 kids that wanna go. So there'd be 200 available, and then they do like a fundraiser to meet.
Right,
The
so
balance for
they
the-
ought to have some contribution to it,
And
okay.
I think at one point, wasn't there some of that set aside so that they could roll money over? I thought there was something set aside so that any efforts, any fundraising efforts that were donated to the Conservation Commission for this sponsorship program was rolled over. Do you remember that?
That's, you're getting into something different, that's not,
But it happened in the past, is what I'm saying.
but that's something really, a donation is different than, we're talking about what's actually in the budget, which is
Budgeted by
raised
line.
through taxation. Those are
Okay.
2 different things, you
Yeah.
gotta,
Sorry.
If we had leftover money as donations, it should sell someplace.
It does, I think it is.
We just saw the budget and the expenses there. Which, by the way, if you want to give me those copies, I'll scan in and email everybody a copy for their files.
That'd be
Free of
great.
charge?
Absolutely.
You're doing way too much.
It's all electronic anyway.
It takes a couple of minutes.
So how about if can I bring this right down there? Do you want the whole pile, Lee? This is right back to the budget lines. And this is right back to the.
He just wants the budget papers.
We only had two pages, I thought.
For,
Oh, we got
Two
more.
different dates.
We have 4 now.
Two
Okay.
different dates.
it's to October and December.
All right, well, I can scan those in and email to everybody so they have it on file.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anything else, Donna?
that's all. I'll see what I can do at getting this information out there.
Should we have the chair contact the school board and see if they wanna put it on the agenda?
I don't mind doing that. I kind of started playing with this one, and so I'd like to see if I can follow it through.
That's the right
Sorry.
attitude.
All right, need for bylaws to outline the Conservation Commission's processes and procedures, review of drafted copy. This item may be combined with item E7, discussion.
I think that should be F7.
Mr. Chairman, before we go further with back to the camper thing, the thing I wanted to mention is that we're doing this to the school, but we don't want to forget about all the kids that are being homeschooled.
Community. Oh, okay, good point.
Now, I have no idea how many there are, but we don't want to leave them out.
That's right.
And I'm not exactly sure how we can communicate that, but if there's some way we could put it,
Maybe on the town website.
yeah,
There's a couple other groups too that might help spread the word.
ESAU usually has a list of homeschooled,
They should,
so
yeah.
you could give it to the SAU and.
would they send it out?
They should.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing is there's a session that's for the older kids too, the 14 to 17-year-olds, so it's not just Paul School. Kids who would be at Spalding and Kingswood.
Hmm.
and those are the kids that probably wanna eventually become counselors
Right.
themselves.
Right. Okay.
Sean, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I want to be sure we covered that before we moved on.
That's a good
Thank you,
point.
Ed. I had forgotten. So you see on that number two, that should be F7, not E7?
Yeah, that should be F7.
F7.
F7, okay, thank you.
So, the process and the procedures, you're talking about applications that come in and what
Well-
number of them and stuff like that.
What I did is, I got thinking about after our last meeting, and we were discussing the processes and procedures for applications and what happened if there was a dwelling time, et cetera. And where does it go from here? And there was a hiccup in the process. So I got thinking about it. I did some research, and some of the conservation commissions in the local area have written, they refer to them as bylaws, you can call them what you want. So I drafted up a copy. I emailed it to everybody, but I brought some additional copies in case you didn't bring one. But I thought we could consider having something so that when we have a question, we know what the process or procedure, or a new person comes on, they get a copy so that they understand what the process and procedures are.
Business as usual. This is how we conduct our stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd like to really have a good discussion about that, but everybody's gonna need, I didn't bring enough copies, I don't think.
I've got one.
I've got one on the phone, so I can
Yeah.
write these down.
Let me make sure I've got,
Make sure you have one.
no, I didn't bring one either, these are other drafts. I got some more, hang on.
Do you wanna kinda read the draft you have, Dave? And I can take notes and,
It's rather long.
It is
Yeah,
long.
we don't need to, but-
And I emailed everybody a copy. Why don't I suggest from the standpoint of time, that everybody read that. I can email it again if you want, and really be prepared in our next meeting to have a copy and physically review it then. Mark up your copies for discussion.
If you like, I've marked up my copy. If you want to look at it and incorporate anything you think is reasonable in your rewrite.
Oh, okay, I can do that.
But there were a couple places where you changed, for example, 7 to 5, but you didn't change the written 7 to 5.
Okay,
And you left in a Farmington instead of a Wakefield
Yeah, okay.
in one place.
yeah,
and
well, you can see I cut
a couple
pasted
of
some of that. Okay,
questions I had as well.
I'll do that and I'll send it back to everybody again.
thank
And
you.
then maybe in the next meeting, we can spend some time to tear it apart and see if it's something we really want to use. And it doesn't necessarily mean what's written here is the exact process. Just a working copy, okay?
Alright.
I also had some questions on some of the issues.
I already covered my other, so, unfinished business, Gage Hill.
Anybody see the parking lot since the material's been added down there?
No, did they really add it?
Yay.
Oh, yeah.
When did they do that?
Oh, a month and a half ago?
Well,
They spread it out.
Oh, yeah.
Has it been that long? I was by there not too long ago, but maybe it was.
I gotta
Yeah,
go check
we
it
wanna-
out.
We want to thank Brock and his crew
Yes.
for
Definitely.
taking, I think, about 64 yards of sub base, and then he brought in another 12 or 16 yards of crushed gravel on top of it. Made it real
Oh,
nice.
you gravel too?
Yeah.
Nice,
great.
We brought
nice.
the skid steer down there, straightened things out, and made it look real nice.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Is that long since I've gone up there? I
Yeah,
didn't-
time's flying, but they did a great job.
Alright, well,
So do you want to
thank
take
Brock
that
and the
off the
highway
agenda now?
department for that then.
Should we cross that off? Parking area?
Yep, hey, yeah.
It'll come off next agenda.
Progress.
I can tell you the posts have been stood up and minimally backfilled, because I didn't have a spade, but They're standing. They're waiting.
Getting closer.
So
all the
we're
time.
almost
They'll
there.
intimidate a little bit, but they won't hold the gate yet.
No, the frost will probably do them in before springtime comes
Yeah.
in. Unless I get down those things.
Okay.
Then they're down to trail maps. I have updated you on what the trail maps last time. I have not been out there again, partly due to weather issues and partly due to hunting issues. I don't like wandering in the woods during deer season. It makes me feel nervous.
Yesterday was the last day, so.
Especially
you're
if
good
I
to
don't
go.
have a gun, fight back. But I hope to get out there again in either mid-January and through February and finish up the extension of the trail, which I think we can take all the way up to that corner, which will add another quarter mile or so to it. So we'll end up with well over a mile out and back. I don't see any way of making it loop right at the moment, but
That'll
maybe
be a
we
lot
can.
of work.
The problem is it's not that wide. And so you're looping, you're going off a nice, well-traveled road almost. It's a woodland road into places where you're going through swamps and stuff or wetlands, and it's not much room to make a loop. But maybe I can get it marked. I don't know. I've never marked a trail before. I don't know how it works in midwinter. Does the paint stick to the trees properly? I don't know.
Breadcrumbs.
Yeah, I think it would. But anyway,
I would think of it too.
we'll look into that. But I don't want to post a map until we have it marked, because I don't want to send anybody out thinking they know where they're going and having them get lost. Although they'll run into a rock wall soon enough, and don't go over the rock wall, you'll be safe. But anyway, that's where the trail mapping process goes.
How about your nifty little sign things, Dave? Remember the
Yeah.
little metal
Yeah.
things?
Mhm.
We still have those? Or are they up?
I found them,
Okay.
but I've got to check with Salt again because I counted them. I think we got like 25.
Yeah, I need to check the perimeter. I think 25 would be minimal. I don't think we can really do it with 25, but you've got a mile out plus, and then you've got the extension going to the west, or east rather, and I just don't think 25 is going to do the perimeter, but
Your goal is to keep them in sight of each other, so if you're standing at one, you can look down.
I think they said about 500 feet. They
Well, I got to check with them to see, but it seemed to me the distance that they quoted me was pretty broad. So,
Yeah.
but I'll check on that. I got to call them anyway because when Paul and I walked the Lavender property, I filled out the report, signed it, put both our names on there as the people that walked it, and emailed it in to the person that had forwarded me the forms, and we got a letter here dated November that they're looking for the report. So I'll have to call, maybe it went to the wrong person. But I can find that email because it's in my
So
file.
like a January date, that they call it a deadline or something. I mean,
Yeah.
every year we discuss how we can't get out there and see what's on the ground, when the snow's on the ground, and would they be willing to wait until the snow's off the ground? They always correspond back, of course we would. And so
But
sometimes.
this is a 2018 report, which we did. And it's in the file downstairs, but I scanned a copy in, so. I will look that up. I've got to file these, so I'll get a copy from the files downstairs. I still got an email copy on my computer, I'm sure, but I'll take care of it anyway. So that should be a unfinished business item.
Trifold, anything more on that, dude?
Not much
Fall around?
better. So I'm waiting to get an extension of the trail if possible and mark the trail before anything gets posted. Thought Connie might want to look at the status of our trifold on Gage Hill. You can have that copy. This is an interesting tree.
I would think so.
That is one of the points of interest along there.
Yeah.
I've never seen a tree quite like that.
No.
I spent most of my career wandering through woods. But they're neat. But we're hoping to have one of those developed for every trail that we develop. And at the moment, this one is the farthest along, I guess, and it is still waiting for the completion and marking of the trail before we get the map posted, on the map that's on the back, and the brochure posted. But we're getting there.
NOI revisions?
Okay, I sent out a update of what I have done on the soils description. Again, I won't read it, but you all got a copy of it. And I welcome any feedback you want to give me on it. I included some pictures, make it a little more interesting. And I discussed the fact that it is difficult for us to put a soils map into our NRI that is in any way meaningful. It's just that the mosaic of soil types that comes out is so small scale that it's difficult to actually tell anything from it. To get it at any level we could do, it would have to be about 9 maps to cover the town. And then I found this app that you can get online, or you can even, I have one on my phone now, where from the California group, Davis, I think it was. What was it? I can't remember which one it was now. UC Davis, yeah. That you can get down to individual blocks of soil types, to a property size in many cases, and it gives a complete description of the soil type for that, the types of soils that make up the composition, the drainage, water table, bedrock depth, all sorts of interesting things about it. That is something that anybody in town could use or any developer could use to highlight the property they're dealing with.
So that's a link to a page or something like that?
Right now, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 pages.
But I mean, what you were just talking about, the information of the
Oh,
soil
yeah,
data?
yeah, I've got
That's-
provided the link to the site.
So they go on and
Yeah.
Google that and
Yeah.
come up.
And then if you go on to Google's Play or whatever you're looking for your apps, the app is on there too. Just say soils app and it comes up, which I thought was rather nice. I mentioned that in here. The references in this that I sent you would probably end up being removed from here and put into the Appendix F with the rest of the references, so they're all in one place. I welcome any feedback you have on that, if you want to suggest changes or additions.
Should it be in like a motion to strike the requirement for the soils
Well,
part of the natural
at this
resource
point, we
index?
haven't approved any of the changes.
Right.
We've just basically reached a consensus on what is appropriate and what isn't, and we'll vote on all the changes at once.
But, I mean, with action taken by the commission to no longer require that soils thing, that would be something we could take off.
Oh, the soils map, yeah. I've actually deleted the soils map. That's the next thing I'm talking about, the maps. And replaced it with this description. The maps themselves, I don't know, if you have individual suggestions, just send them along to me and I'll see if I can incorporate them and we can discuss it further. If not, we'll assume that there's a consensus that this is okay. I haven't done the forest one, the unfragmented forest thing. I've got to start on it, but I haven't finished it. On the maps, I sent around a digital copy of all these. And I've actually, to summarize, I've replaced or created 12 new maps, some that required a 2-part approach, a north-south approach to get sufficient coverage of the town. Again, you get into issues of scale where it's useful. A lot of the maps that were in there before are you can't read them. There's no point to them. If you can't read it, it's not useful. By breaking it into north-south, you get it at a scale you can actually read the map. So we've got several new maps in here. And some of them replace old maps, some of them there are two maps. For example, the flood maps, we have a north and a south flood map, a north and a south aquifer map. Those are replacing the old maps in a consistent format. The others were kind of varied quite a bit. One of the things I added to all of them that were missing from most of the other maps are the latitude and longitude lines, which help you locate. If you know a feature and you have the latitude and longitude, maybe your GPS told you you're standing at such and such a point, you can easily locate it on the map using those, which helps. But basically, they all look similar in terms of the overall outline. I have retained several of the old maps. For example, the water resource inventory map is one that I can't get access to the data to replace. We could probably find somebody that does and hire them to do it if we wanted to update it. One of them is that's a master plan 2020 map. The water sources map I left in. Unfragmented blocks of land I left in. Wakefield zoning map and prime farmlands I left in. The ones I deleted were the water resources, which was duplicated actually by the water sources map. The tax parcel, since that actually almost all the maps have it in the background of the individual house lots and so forth, so that was really not necessary to have a separate map. The zoning map was a duplicate of the Wakefield zoning map I left in, which actually I think was newer. The land use duplicated most of the two land use maps I created. And with a map of the base map, which was just the roadways and rivers and things, which are on all the maps. So there wasn't a need for those. We ended up with about the same number of pages of maps as we had to start with. I did have questions though, on two of them. Two of the first maps, the selected wetlands and associated watersheds and the wetlands selected for GPS survey, there's no explanation of what their purpose is. I don't know why they're in there. Dave, you might know. I think you were involved in putting them in there in the first place.
Well, I saw a reference in everybody else's, when I say everybody else's, other cities and towns in their NRI. But if you feel that that's really a duplication based on some of the other maps that you have, then we just take it right out of there.
Well, we do have wetlands maps.
Yeah.
I guess the question is, and we do have watershed maps. I'm not sure what they were selected for, I guess is the question. and what the GPS survey refers to.
Yeah.
If there's no explanation of them included, I'm not sure how useful they actually are.
I delete them then, because you've got everything else on the maps and your GPS will get rid of.
And the other one was the conservation priority areas. I guess I'm wondering, are those our priorities? Or are they somebody else's priorities? I don't know what they really refer to in terms of
I
priorities.
see that as the town's or our priorities as a commission.
Yeah.
So, Paul, I just wanted to make sure my notes are clear. You said selected wetlands and associated ones.
Yeah. It's the second one on the maps list, page 25, if you want to.
Page 25, okay.
On the one I sent out. And the other one, the wetland selected for the GPS survey, was 26 on map on page 26. And the conservation priority one is map on page 37. So those are the ones that you would be looking at.
The priorities, as I saw it, looking at the explanation of what it was in the guide and then looking at other towns and cities, the conservation priorities were priorities that were listed by the Conservation Commission of areas I'd like to see conserved or not developed or maintained as they are.
So there were things that were actually coming out of our conservation commission.
Right, each town and city came up with their own
Okay.
list of areas, like if we determined that wildlife corridors were important, then we could look at 2 or 3 places on the map and say, gee, it would be nice if this was all conserved. And I could draw you 2 or 3 lines on that town map right now of areas that would be effective, but
We gotta get a
I don't know if it's possible.
I think we gotta get a coyote car and start eating all the field mice that are coming to people's houses.
I wish we could do that, because I was at war all fall.
Yeah.
I had someone actually email me. As chairman of the conservation, his mother and her neighbors were being infested.
Yeah.
And as chair, do I know why? Maybe they
It
wanted
was
to
a
watch
real good year. for
Dancing
field
with the
mice.
Stars, or
Squirrels, field mice, and chipmunks, all.
no idea why there was so many mice this year.
Yeah, I have noticed the same thing. I've trapped out
Yeah.
literally hundreds of them
there was a
from my
lot this
garage,
year.
my RV, you know. They show up in the weirdest places, and usually they show up dead because they fell into my recycle bin and couldn't. You know, 3 of them fell in, 2 of them have eaten the other one, and
Use them
they're
as-
still hanging on. You know, it's disgusting.
They do go in cycles, so mice
Yeah.
go in cycles, and last year was a really good year for the mast crop. So we were
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
inundated with suicide squirrels. The roads were littered with them for a while. It's the
Uh-oh.
same with the
I'm
mice.
so sorry.
Okay. But that's not what we're here to talk about, right?
No,
So I guess, do we have a consensus to keep the priority areas and delete the 2 selected woodlands and wetlands for GPS survey?
Sounds
If
good
you
to me.
have changed your mind, email me and explain why you think it belongs in there, and I'll go ahead and leave them in. But right now, I'm trying to get some of these things finalized so we can do a vote on a final copy.
Well, I think we
At
should
some
retain the conservation priorities, even if we
Yeah.
haven't filled it out yet.
Yeah.
This NRI is gonna always be a work in process anyway. But as far as the wetlands and associated watersheds and the GPS survey
Mm-hmm.
and select, I think we can delete those because the other maps that we have
Cover
pretty
it,
much
yeah.
cover that.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that those 2, which is page 25 and 26,
Mm-hmm.
on our current NRI, we delete.
Okay. I'm
That's
agree
right.
with
That's what Paul would have said, and
that. Yeah.
I said it sounds good to me, and
I'm just
somebody else.
reaffirming
All
and
good.
asking the board to approve. That's a motion, by the way.
Oh, well, we just need a consensus at
Oh,
this point.
consensus,
We're not
right.
gonna vote on the changes until we get them all in place.
Okay,
There's no point in
all right.
voting on each individual change.
I'll second the consensus.
Okay, sounds good.
Alright.
The only other thing that I wanted to bring up on the NRI is the conservation priorities. I have not done anything with it yet. I really don't want to put in my set of priorities. I'd like to have everybody email me a copy of the priorities you think belong, and I can maybe put it together in some sort of coherent form. But nobody's emailed me yet. And they're not going to be my priorities, they're our priorities.
Yep. Do you think that that particular item should be subject to input from the townspeople?
That's not a bad idea.
So you can put out a survey and,
Yeah.
you know, on the website and see if we get some response on what they'd like to see conserved from a conservation standpoint, not a historical standpoint. We've got to be
Right, right.
clear on that because now we're into the Heritage Commission's
Well,
territory.
No, we don't do that. But a lot of times, 500 people's ideas are better than 5
Yeah.
people's ideas.
Yeah, it should be a town priority. Yeah.
Would you be able to provide examples from other communities, what
Should be.
constitutes priority?
It varies a lot. Some towns have very specific, we're going to do this to this piece of property priorities. Others have very vague.
And
Comprehensive.
others
Yeah.
don't put any land in
Yeah,
conservation.
Exactly.
Yeah, like us, we don't have any in there now. So
Well,
that's,
we do have conservation.
well, I mean, but we don't have any, we have a conservation priority section of the NRI, but
Right,
nothing's in
right.
it.
Right.
To be
Except
developed.
everything that's been conserved.
What I'd like to see, I guess, then, I would prefer the broader generalizations. We talked about you conserve and protect and acquire forested and rural landscapes that reflect the nature of Wakefield's history and culture, for example. Some along that line rather than a specific, we're going to develop a trail on this property. They don't have to be changed as frequently if you do that. But,
That could be a just devil's advocate, a drawback of sending it out, and then suddenly you get
Yeah.
bombed with all kinds of people wanting to have specific
Special,
setups and,
Special interest groups.
yes.
but you don't have to
This and
include
that and the other.
Everything.
all
But
of
if you
those.
keep it broad scoped, like you had just quoted, that
Yeah.
might be the best way to go,
Yeah.
because it's saying what we pretty much feel, and probably the community as well, without nitpicking.
Right.
Mhm. So what is the
Consensus.
consensus on this one? Yeah.
I like
Good.
what you said.
Yeah.
That was just one of them. I mean,
Right.
you've got a list
Yeah.
of several here. The other three I had were develop recreational opportunities, for example, hiking, skiing, snowshoeing trails as allowed by conservation easement restrictions, and encourage Wakefield residents to enjoy our natural environment through educational outreach.
Education, I knew there was some.
Monitor conservation lands to ensure compliance with easement restrictions as appropriate. Promote environmental awareness through literature and special programs, for example, environmental camp guided nature walks, etc. Maintain an up-to-date natural resource index and inventory of conservation lands in Wakefield. Those were the,
Even
One
though
side.
you're saying that those are your priorities, I would claim those as my priorities. I know
I
you
think-
don't want to
yeah.
just.
I'm not going
I-
to be selfish about them.
Oh, okay.
You can have some too.
Good. So I don't know if we need to rewrite what you've already said, is what I'm saying.
Well-
I think those that you have, maybe if you email those,
Those have
out
been
in writing.
distributed at one
yeah,
time.
I saw it.
I could distribute them again.
That would be good. And then maybe we can just kind of have a look over, so next time we come back and we can get that off of our
Make
agenda.
any changes you want to make.
Yeah, I mean, everything that
Wordsmith it if we
stated
need
Yeah.
to.
is not contrary to the cause, really.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Kind of goes with who we are. As a commission is,
No.
I think we should add that the Union Meadows town property should be put into conservation as originally intended.
Yeah, that is one that I think ought to be considered putting that under conservation easement of some sort.
so you're making a specific about that as a
Um,
priority?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
Well,
Because
it would be-
the money was voted to do that, and it never
Right.
happened.
Yeah,
Or-
but we in recent history, you know, within, I'm gonna say the last 2 years, we've had correspondence from the attorney who reviewed the articles on the warrant when it was voted on. And his opinion was that it was clear that the intention of the money raised and appropriated was to put that land into conservation.
Correct.
All of the legalese wasn't followed through, but the monies that were left over at some point, probably 3 or 4 years ago, that was raised and appropriated, got returned to the town, or the taxpayers to help us.
It went back to the general fund,
Right.
right. I
Well-
got the minutes from that meeting, but I think that at that point, everybody had forgotten that last step that needed to be done. I'm not blaming anybody.
Right.
It's just one of those things. That's why I like to see unfinished business on the agenda, so we don't forget it, and we can keep the priorities there.
Yep.
And this didn't happen back then.
I guess my point was, if the articles on the warrant were specific and the monies raised and appropriated was spent and then everything left over was returned, do you really think there'll be a challenge to the use of that conservation the land put into conservation easements? Do you think that use would ever be challenged by anybody in town? 20, 40, 60 years down the road?
I would say yes, because if you look at the records today, you can see that it's town property, period. There's no restriction. So from a legal standpoint, it's unrestricted town property that the town could do something else with later, not realizing, or even if they did realize, they'd still legally be able to do it because they're not bound by anything. That's my opinion. I'm not an attorney.
It's a common sense opinion.
So we should put it on there and we can beat on it at one time or another, somehow. But I really feel that something needs to be done. It's great property and I want to be sure it stays conserved the way the townspeople voted in that Article 23.
Dave, could you put that into a statement to add to the priorities?
I have a
and
list
email
here,
to
I'll
me?
send it to you.
Okay.
My concern with the Dave would be, would the taxpayers want to raise and appropriate the monies for the legal part of that? You know, would they want to go back and revisit it? So,
Well, I don't think, well, Ralph, you and I know, and I think we've all got records someplace of correspondence with the town attorney, that we could actually put it in our own deed. Everybody that is a conservation company, or, you know, like Salt and all the rest, would tell me that would be illegal because they would have it. But as far as I'm concerned, this is still America. We don't have to do it at 18 grand, which is what it would cost. We can just write it into the deed that say that this is to be conserved. Now, the attorneys seem to think that we could do that.
yeah,
We
I
can.
agree.
We already got a legal opinion from the town attorney.
Right, and what was it gonna cost us? $500?
Yeah.
And we got money in our fund to do that,
Yeah.
unrestricted funds.
And
So,
if
you know.
really got nasty, you could always put the wording of your change to the deeding on a warrant article itself and have the people vote on that, you know, adding that to the legal deeds, the documents. If it really got,
We could write our own conservation easement. We've got plenty of them on file downstairs. It's pretty easy to duplicate that
Yeah.
in the name of this property. We'd talk to the town attorney and find out, but
no, we already have.
I don't think we need to spend a lot more of the taxpayers' money on the fact that there was an oversight. If there is a way that we can still accomplish that goal legally and at a minimal cost.
Yeah, I know at one point the discussion was that the town can't oversee its own conservation budget.
Can.
We can.
Okay.
That-
We've already got the legal opinion on that, so.
You know, I kind of felt this is still America.
Well, you could actually do that. We got money in the
Yeah.
budget. You could do that as long as you vote on it before the end of the year. You want
Which means tonight.
to, that means, right now. Well, that means
Because
like
the
right now.
25th, I don't think we'll be having a meeting.
No,
Which is our next scheduled meeting.
No, Tony already asked me if it would be safe to assume. I said, this one time, Tony, I think it might be safe to assume we won't be having a meeting. But, yeah, as long as it's voted on tonight, you could, and then have the town attorney do it right up.
Yeah, and then I think I don't know, but once we do all of that, the selectmen need to approve that.
Yeah,
I imagine they
Yeah,
do.
so I mean, we've got to have something in writing for them to look at, to
Yeah.
yes or no, along with,
well, right, but
The
as long
attorneys-
as it, money was voted to expend tonight, you could, at that point, have the, even if the attorney didn't complete it till after the first year, it would be fine as long as the money was voted to expend tonight. You could move that forward and just have the town attorney write up a conservation.
Not to exceed X amount of money, I would hope. You wouldn't want to
Well,
open.
Of course, we won't want,
Not that we wouldn't get charged the right price, but, you know, sometimes the right price is twice as much as the real price. If that makes any sense.
you got the copies of the budget there, Dave.
yeah, I was looking, undesignated fund balance is $116,050.45. The undesignated fund balance, $79,118.77. This report is dated July 2018.
You should do the last one. That one's December.
But I don't have a copy of that.
Yeah, you do.
No, I don't.
Yeah, it was.
I have an
Not the
expense
other.
report,
It's just, that's right.
and that's
Oh.
all I have. That's all that we got this time was the expense report.
Well, if we got money in the budget and it's voted on tonight, you could have the town attorney write up a conservation
Okay.
on that, but it would have to be done tonight before the end of the year, or the money will go back to the town, back to the town.
What line item are we going to utilize?
That's an important part of the motion.
We got 2,500s left over in the camper educational sponsorship. I mean, we have undesignated funds,
That would seem to me to be the appropriate one, yeah.
but out of the undesignated funds is
Right.
what I'm thinking,
That's,
is where it should come from. I don't remember the exact cost quoted to us by the attorney back when we got this information.
I just, if it helps the conversation, I just had some deeds drawn up, and it was $415 to have them drawn up and recorded at the registry, so.
All right, so we've got $79,118.77 in the undesignated fund. I would make a motion to approve expenditures not to exceed $2,500 to get this done. I figure it's gonna be about $500, but I don't wanna find out it comes to $650 or $850 or whatever. And then we're boxed in because we didn't vote to expend that much money.
What was the amount again?
How about 1,000?
Yeah, I was
That's
gonna
what I
say
was thinking.
I was gonna say 15, but
I think 1,000 would be appropriate.
Okay. I'll amend my motion to $1,000 from the undesignated fund for legal fees to draw up conservation easements to the deed with the town attorney, as we originally discussed a couple of years ago.
For-
Pertaining to the Union Meadows
Meadows.
Union
property.
Meadows property, there are 2
okay,
plots down there.
I'll second the motion.
there we go.
Well, there's two,
Geez, I don't know, yeah.
two with
If it was 2 deeds from me, that was $415, so.
Yeah, but we're gonna write more into the deed than just a deed.
Yeah.
So I
Well-
mean, it could cost you 2 or 3 times what you paid. That's why I made the $2,500.
thinking 2 properties, should we go 1,500?
If we vote to appropriate more monies,
If
Doesn't
we
mean
don't
it has
need
to
it,
be
we
we
don't
don't
have to
need it, we're
spend
not gonna
no.
spend it, but
Right.
if we find out it's more than, say, the 1,000 or the 1,500 by $100, we didn't approve that.
I'll
So if
go
we
back to
approve
the
more,
original.
and then,
But what, past history I've seen, whatever's appropriated gets, the whole thing gets.
really,
gets go- So,
Sometimes,
I'll-
in some instances.
I would support 15. I think that, just to do two easements on town land, the town attorney, I
They would
think,
be restrictive deeds, is what.
right, I think 1,500 would be fair.
well, I hope so. So I will amend my motion with concern and prejudice. That if something happens, don't hold it against me.
Is
So
there-
$1,500, amended motion, $1,500 from the undesignated fund for legal fees to get the Union Meadows properties, the 2 pieces, into conservation. Once we have those documents, then we would forward it to the selectmen for approval.
I would second that amended motion.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Research last timber harvest on Prairie Hill.
No
Town
research was
forest.
done. If that has my name after it,
Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
oh my gosh, I didn't do that yet. So I gotta review these agendas before the date of the.
That would help. Anyway, that's all right. I did find out that the property was voted in 2010 per Article 21, voted into a town park. 2010, Article 21. Yeah. Okay.
And I forget how many years ago it was, but me and Nate walked it with Wendy Scribner
6 years ago.
from UNH, and it wasn't even close to being. It had been done, and she said it wasn't even close to being ready for another one.
I thought you said 15 to 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it probably would be, because it was like, it had been done short time prior to that. Oh, because she said it's not even close to being
Right.
ready for another cut.
Yeah, I think we have some lead time on that.
Yeah, I think we do.
Well, I don't disagree. I don't disagree at all. But at times, if you talk to foresters, it's time to go in and not do a timber harvest, but to go in and clear out some of the stuff that you don't want, so that you get more hardwoods and you get more softwood growth, and do away with some of the other stuff that's growing there. But
That's what we were looking at over on what's the road, the dump zone, Ryan's Road for the school.
oh, really?
We walked out there and someone had done a timber harvest, but he said that we went out there with a forester, and he said if you don't come in here and basically
Eradicate the undergrowth.
more or less road, it's not road, there's a word for it, but basically get everything that's there out. In 20 years, you're not gonna be able to have a timber cut, because it's gonna be,
He recommended at the time a whole tree harvest, which was clear the land.
it had been done already.
But
He said what was growing, what had
Yeah.
started to regrow was not going to be any valuable timber 20 or 30 years from now, unless you went in and basically just, clear cut and
From a-
restarted the
From a
process.
silvicultural point of view, you have to manage the land for particular types of timber if you want to have a valuable harvest out of it. And it depends on what management scheme you come up with as to whether it's going to generate the kind of trees you want. And these apparently were done without too much consideration of what was coming back.
Well, that's why I think it would be good to have a forester look at that property and look at the Union Meadows property, to look at it from even a future management plan, not necessarily needing to do anything now, but find out what the experts tell us needs to be done and when, so that we're being good stewards of the property. What do we want to manage it for?
Well, we could always get a hold of Wendy Scribner. I'm sure she'd be more than happy to come out.
Sure. Whatever it would take to
Some
get a
point.
report, I think would be a good idea on both properties. At least we'd have an idea of.
I mean, I'm sure she wrote a report for Prairie Hill at the time. Like I said, I can't remember. It's been a number of years that
6 years ago.
I mean, it's probably about that already, maybe. But it's been a while. But she was going to do up a report on. I would think that she may have forwarded one to us at the time, but whether we have a copy of it, or I'm sure she could probably always give us a copy of it from that time, and also to go out on the Union Meadows. Probably, maybe more sometime during the spring or whatever, but for the Union Meadows.
They have your drones too that go up, do a survey of, from the sky what it is, and they can see what the canopies are, what the trees, what, certain species are here and, prevailing over there, and this needs that. So drones are a good thing too.
I will check the Prairie Hill file downstairs to see if there's anything in there that might have a copy of her report.
It should be, because like I
If
said,
it-
she was doing a report on
Yeah, if it's there, I'll get copies and bring it to the next meeting.
it. All right.
Thank you.
Further discussion of the proper procedure of processing applications.
Pretty much under what we discussed with our so-called drafted bylaws, which is actually procedures. So I would say that we would move on to the next meeting when we come back with that. So that ties right into the Article 2, Item 2, E2.
Yep. All righty. Public comment.
I have a few questions. First off, I'm reading the minutes here, and I wondered what the Conservation Commission had to do with Pond Road. There's no conservation land down there.
I think our concern was water quality, and the concern of what's happening in drainage down there. And we discussed water quality in conjunction with another report that I presented, not necessarily about Pond Road, but all of the water bodies in town. And we talked about the phosphorus levels in various lakes and ponds in towns. And that came up as a part of the conversation, that there was runoff and there was a concern that, you know, the runoff is not being filtered properly. That's it.
Did you get a copy of the letter that, Ralph Fogg read to the selectmen? Because once it's brought into the public, anybody can get a copy of it.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get a copy of that letter? Where he submitted it to you?
You talking about my complaint with the
Right.
pictures and the arrows and
Yeah, I'm talking about the
The-
letter you read to the selectmen.
the,
I've asked for a copy, but I haven't been able to obtain one yet.
yeah, I think the report that I showed, brought to the Conservation Commission, was a copy of what I had given to Dave Price for the DES. And Kelly had, apparently made copies of what I had submitted to the Conservation Commission and claimed that she had forwarded to DES. So the letter that I wrote was something that the letter that I had read wasn't written. It was, and I explained this to Kelly Collins when she requested it from me. I was looking at the situation at Pond Road, and I was speaking into this phone, and it has like a memo thing. So when Ms. Collins asked me for that, I tried to retrieve it, and probably instead of retrieving it, I hit the thing that removed it because I could not find it. So I never presented a letter in a formal letter to the Conservation Commission. What I read to the selectmen was what, and here in the minutes you can clearly see that I stated my letter was regarding the issues on Pond Road, and I submitted this as a resident, not a Conservation
Yeah.
Commission member. So the same thing, the same thing applies to the, I guess, letter, but it was really a memo on a phone. So it wasn't the Conservation Commission's
No, we didn't-
directive
we
or
didn't
anything
see it.
like that, sending me to the selectmen.
If Tom Beeler had been at that meeting, he would have asked you
Yeah,
for a copy of that.
yeah.
And anything that's read into the public, anybody has the right to have a copy of it.
Sure.
And, I'm really upset that we couldn't get a copy of that, because you just reading it to us was like, okay, he said this, he said that.
Yeah.
A copy needs to be made available if you're gonna read something like that to this board or to any board.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was kind of interesting because you can watch it on the Vimeo, the Clearview channel there, and I was kind of entertained by the idea that there was discussion at the board level about how much time I was taking reading my statement, and people were actually listening to the statement.
Well, I was listening, but I didn't get every word.
It is in the record,
So-
video record.
Right, but, that isn't the way it should be presented to any board. And what did the board agree, that something needs to be done with Pond Road? What, did they agree, what had to be done?
Needs to be maintained, like it always was. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, well, mine's something else, because it all is not maintained. It's a class 6 highway. Occasionally, it would be graded. It never was plowed, that section.
No,
It was plowed by somebody else.
the road was maintained from approximately April 1 to December 1, basically.
As
The
a-
time, that the dates may be off a few days, it was on the sign. So it was maintained during the summer months, and it was graded. Now there are potholes in that road. I just went across it this
I know that
afternoon.
road.
They're
I
over
know.
2 feet.
Yeah.
It's not correct. Not with the amount of tax dollars this town's getting off the people that own land on that road. I don't care what class it is wrong. My
It
opinion,
needs-
nothing to do with the Conservation Commission,
Right.
okay?
And it needs to go to the legal, and the legal has advised us what we have to do. And we're in the process of doing that. But that's not what I brought this up for. I wanna know why the Conservation Commission is even considering this.
I think it was in conjunction with my report relative to water quality in the various lakes and how much it varies by each lake. And we talked about that, we talked about phosphorus levels, and then we got into runoff that causes phosphorus, and this subject came up as an issue that may be causing more trouble. That end of the lake had a higher level than the other end of the lake. That was it, that's why it came up.
It's the same reason that the 15 or 20 minutes that we began our meeting with reviewing all the applications that come back from the state that are directly impacted by the waterfront properties around the town. That's one of our main jobs is to
Right.
review this stuff. So that's why it was done that way.
Okay.
I'd like to
Now,
address
I
this,
can-
please.
I can accept that, that's a logical explanation to me,
Right.
okay?
Can I expand on that? The Water Protection Quality Act of 1974 is very clear. When I swear an oath to uphold the laws here, this water protection, to me, I've worked over there for decades. And I'm quite proud of the fact that Level Lake has been one of the cleanest lakes in the state, and it's rapidly deteriorating. And to me, when we have elected or appointed officials who willingly and knowingly ignore the law that we're swearing to uphold, that's a tragedy. And to me, it's an offense that's punishable by law. So I can't sleep at night knowing that the leaders in my town, including me, knowingly polluting a water body. I don't know how you can sleep at night. I can guarantee you, if one of the selectmen or the town administrator, the town attorney owned that piece of property, there wouldn't be a runoff issue out there. There's no runoff issue at all, and that road would be maintained. I guarantee it.
Let me just give you a little history, so to speak. If things had progressed like they should have, now, we lost 2 selectmen, we had others come in, and so on and so forth. So this pond road kept going on and on and on. If everybody had stayed where they were, we would have had a culvert in there and it would have been graded. But no, different people came in and they wanted to check the legal this and the legal that. That's how that progressed, and that's why I can sleep at night, because I tried my darndest.
All I know is it continues, there's more storms coming in this weekend, and to me, there's, ignoring an issue doesn't make it go away, it only makes it worse. And the signs being off there now, if an unknowing person was depending on their GPS to get them to one point on the backside of Level Lake, and they encouraged that driver to cut across that section of Pond Road, they're gonna hit 60 feet of glacial ice pack, and there's pine trees out there. When you lose control of your vehicle on a slide, you're gonna end up in, the town is just, how can we subject every taxpayer in town to the whims of a half a dozen folks that aren't taxpayers in town? I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Ralph,
Steve,
that
can I
road,
ask a
that
question?
section is not plowed in the winter.
But
Anyway.
the signs are off, not warning anybody
Right.
anymore. Those signs need to be replaced.
And the
In
culvert was
91
pulled out.
In 91, 92, when the signs went up, all good intentions were made. People intended to have warning. We're not maintaining this road between November 10th and April 1st. That's what the sign said.
And that was way before, those signs were taken out,
And
before we had our new DPW director. Who
Yes,
gave
they were.
permission to have those signs out? I don't know, they never asked me about it.
I can guarantee you, I know who ordered those signs off the road.
Really?
Oh, okay,
know.
so I think that I'm hearing the same thing from both of you. You're saying the same thing, and
Right.
it
Yeah,
sounds like
probably.
both of you are very concerned about this situation. What is it that you're asking of this committee, this conservation commission?
I'm asking why this was even discussed. Now, you say water quality, and good explanation, Steve.
Yeah.
But when I read the minutes, I'm
Mhm.
thinking, this has been discussed time and time and time again. So why is it being brought up to this committee? Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
Water quality,
Right.
yes, I
The
get
stack
that.
of
I didn't
paper.
get that before
Right.
I asked the question. Thank you,
No problem.
Steve.
You're welcome.
But what we're saying is the same thing, but
Right.
we're saying different things on how to go about
How to go
doing
about it.
things.
Is there something you would like this committee to change, alter, or, now you just came for clarification?
Yes,
Okay.
and I don't want this committee to act on it in any way. I
Right,
just,
right.
when I read these minutes tonight,
Mhm.
I wanted clarification.
Okay. And having Steve's response about water
Steve's
quality,
was good.
that made,
And I think if I
Clarify the
recall our
reason why.
discussion of that, that was the one concern we raised, was the water
Right.
quality
Well,
issue.
there's that stack of papers,
Runoff
that's
running in.
basically all about water quality. It's one
And
of
that-
our
that's-
major
And that-
objectives as to
and
why,
that's what our
of
job
what we
is.
do.
And that's the way it should be, instead of, well, there's taxpayers on this property and blah, blah, blah.
No, there
That's,
was,
you shouldn't be getting into.
Now, we as a
That
conservation
is very
commission
good.
never got into a discussion of whether the
That's good.
road is supposed to be maintained, not supposed to be. But we have a water quality issue with that one culvert, which would probably be a pretty minimal correction.
Yeah, and it would
If
have
it
been
can-
taken care of,
Yeah.
but
But it's
Right.
creating maximum
Yeah.
damage.
Yeah.
And when your
Oh,
dam
it's-
is on this end of the lake, and the problem is on the far end of the lake, where normally most phosphorus levels are at the exit end of the lake. Everything flows that way. So when you have a higher influx of phosphorus on the southeast corner, and here at the northwest corner where the dam is, it's a lower level, that means something. That's an indication of a problem. And for me to sit and ignore a problem and do nothing about it, I have a conscience that doesn't allow me to sleep at night. And if it bothers people that I'm bothered by not being sleeping at night, so be it.
And I think you should realize, we have 3 different selectmen. I'm one. What I wanted to do on Pond Road, I can sleep at night,
Alright,
but I'm only one selectman.
have anything else, Connie?
There was a couple things. That letter you gave me about, you were, in deficiency,
Letter of deficiency.
Not us, the individual.
the individual, okay, because I just skimmed over it. So, why, you can't do anything about it, right?
No, the state is just notifying us of that deficiency.
Okay, but you can't do anything about it, it's up to the state.
Correct.
Well, it's up to the individual to correct the deficiency.
Well, yeah.
Right.
I mean, we look at,
Sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't.
we looked at the applications as they come through, and the majority of those look fine, but every once in a while we'll see something that is questionable, and we debate whether we should just kick that back to the property owner or send it forward to the state. We can do either without any repercussion to us.
Yeah.
But as we said earlier in our meeting, our concern is to give positive feedback. If we see an application coming to us, that could be corrected before it gets to the state, so you don't lose 3 months of things.
Saves
bouncing
Right,
time
back.
but
and
the
money.
one in question that Connie's referring to, the state stated that they never received any permit,
Right. Or
So-
application.
or application rather. So
Oh.
this individual is apparently just doing
Oh, yeah.
whatever
that-
he
on that one,
wants.
yeah.
That one, the one that went
Link.
certified mail,
Not
that they
following the
want,
procedures.
they want an answer to, they gave 2 specific dates that they want specifics. The state looks like they're, gonna be dealing with that individual.
For the
Personal.
dates, it's not up to you to
No.
see anything about those dates.
No.
In
no,
fact, that was
that's
a
state.
project that they did, unbeknownst to anybody, but somehow I got reported to DES.
Yeah, probably in the
And so we got
neighborhood.
notified.
as I understand it, our role in that whole application process is, one, to try and help the applicant get things done properly in the first place, to save time. And two, if we have any issues with what they have in the application, we need to raise them before it reaches the state for approval or disapproval. And so if there's something we want to complain about, we need
Right.
to include it with the application.
Similar to the
Yeah.
planning board.
If there's some concern we have
Right.
regarding it, yeah.
What was the other thing? Oh, your budget. Do you know how much money you have in the funds that when people sell their property or subdivide it?
Oh, yeah.
And they take it out of,
Yeah.
Land use
The-
change
Current
tax?
use,
The change in current use tax.
and
Yeah.
all that money goes to the conservation?
correct.
It doesn't come to the town, it goes to the conservation?
I have that
that-
right here.
Yep.
But keep in mind, now, this is dated July, is the last report that we received, but the designated fund balance for land use change tax shows $116,050.45.
That wasn't brought in this year, that's accumulated over the years.
Right.
Right, and of course, the other that we just discussed earlier, the undesignated fund was a 79,118, which leaves us a total balance, reconciled balance, 195,169.
And that money is used to put properties in conservation, to buy properties?
Right.
For conservation purposes.
Yeah. But I mean, it's to buy property.
Yeah,
Buy
we
property,
can't
right.
purchase properties without selectmen approval.
Yeah, right.
But it could be used for that purpose.
That's where that fund would come from.
And usually the selectmen
Yeah.
take your advice on that. I guess that's all I was concerned about.
Well, can I bring up something interesting that I learned talking with a couple of other conservation commissions and local communities? That I talked with one, and they had done a selective timber cut on their conservation property based on what the forest management plan was by the forestry person. And from that, they had enough income to pay for the forestry management plan and the forester, and the rest of the money went into the conservation fund. And so I don't know how that would happen with us if we had property where a selective cut was deemed by a good forestry management plan to be done. You know, where would that income go is my question to you.
That's a good question.
I think if it's conservation property, then it should go into the conservation fund.
Well, I think so too, but, I
But
mean, that's, common sense says that.
Right, but without
That
it being
doesn't
in
mean-
writing,
Yeah.
without it being in writing, it would,
That's law.
And keep in mind now, that we'll say that the town made $10,000. And of that, $500 or $1,000 went to the forestry plan. I have no idea how much these things cost, but my point was, when that monies came in, a piece of that was used to pay the forester, and the rest of it went to the conservation fund. So that would be something interesting to further discuss with the selectmen.
Yeah.
And see if we could come up with a written procedure for that each
That's a good idea.
selectman would know from year to year to year as they change.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea.
Primarily, this is looking at the town forest, which we are charged with management
Well,
of.
Right.
That's a commission.
actually,
Forestry
that, I
committee
think
and
the
commission.
people would have to probably vote
Yeah.
to do that. They do.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Not the selectmen, it would have to go to the voters and do you
Yeah.
approve you utilizing this money
Yeah.
from said timber cuts to go
Yeah.
back into the
Same
conservation?
procedure is used for the current use tax.
Right, yeah.
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 Well, no, the current use tax
Oh,
has
yeah.
already been established.
But that was a
So-
warrant article that was established back
Yeah.
right when I moved
Right.
into town, I think, as I recall.
So it
About
might be good to
2004.
consider that as a warrant article in the future for future discussion, of putting that in. If, in time, some of these areas are gonna need to be harvested. Now, the Prairie Hill Town Forest, maybe it's 10, 15, or 20 years out.
Yeah.
But if a process is put in place now, then that would pay for the plan, and it would pay for the harvest.
Yeah, the warrant article would wanna be specific as to how much, what percentage would go to the town, what percentage would go to the conservation fund, but then the people would vote yes or no on that particular article.
Well, my feeling is that if it's conservation property and you do a timber harvest on the conservation property, the income probably should go into the conservation fund to propagate more conservation work to be done, funded.
And the,
Well,
The
it will be
voters
left up to the voters.
Yeah, no, but I mean, that's.
and
whatever.
sometimes, you know, I would think some towns have education, you know, I mean, some of that money going to the school for conservation classes and stuff like that.
Anything else, Connie?
No, that's it, thank you.
Gabe, you got anything? All right, we're looking at January 14th for our next meeting.
And then the
Gee,
one after that, would it be the
We're not gonna be on
29th?
Christmas Day, huh?
You can be, Dave.
All right,
but,
Scrooge, we won't miss our thing on Christmas.
And then the next one would be the 29th, am I right?
Yep, 20,
Just
yep,
so I can make sure I got,
28th,
29th.
it'd be a Tuesday.
if it's 14th.
Oh,
that's
sorry.
right, it is Tuesday.
Oh, no, wait a minute, no, wait a minute, I'm sorry, the 22nd. No,
No,
14
if we
days
go
later
the
is
14th
28th.
and then the 29th.
well, yeah, well, it's, technically it is the 5th Monday, that's the, yeah.
Hmm.
That's what I was looking at, technically it's the 5th Monday because, but yes, the 14th and the 29th will be the next meetings.
Cool.
Is, anything else? Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, anybody, want to, make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll say
Second.
that.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.